before we had the Street Dogs, the singer Mike McClogan was in the Dropkick Murphys. And so in 1998, they had, in 1998, Dropkick Murphys did Do or Die. And that was their first album. I don't know if they had an EP or a single before that. Honestly, I probably should know that, but I don't. Bro, the first song I ever heard of theirs was Barroom Hero on a Hellcat comp. And I was like, oh, I like this band. And then I heard Do or Die. Then I heard The Gang's All Here like a year later or something. And I was like, oh, is that the same guy? Because they sounded similar enough, man. They really did. Because when you add Ken Casey in there doing like, background vocals and like stuff like that, it makes the Alvar Mike McClogan sound. Yeah, it makes Alvar Mike McClogan sound way more similar. But the first album from Dropkick Murphys, Do or Die, is a bona fide classic. It's like a top 5 album on Hellcat. It is, I don't know about that. That's a bold statement, but it's a fantastic record, man. Front to back, top to bottom. Bro, I don't even know what I would consider to be my favorite songs on here besides Borrow Here's. I don't know, man. I love that song, but I don't know if it's my favorite song off that record or not. Let's see here. So how do you feel about Do or Die? Because I don't think you had that on your list. It was on the bubble.
I didn't, yeah, and for me, it was just more of an issue of like it wasn't gonna be number 5 or number 6. I honestly don't go to it a lot, although like it's kind of like you had with the Alkaline Trio album, in that like these are all the songs I like. It just as an album, I don't think of it as much. Like Barroom Hero, I think might have been my first Dropkick Murphy song as well.
Had to have been.
I'm assuming it's on the same comp. Yeah, it's either there or Epitaph DVD, which I think I would have already had. So I would have already known who Dropkick was and heard their songs, but I really got acquainted through Barroom Hero, which totally threw me off, as you were saying, because the other way I got acquainted was the other Epitaph comp that had Walk Away on it, and I couldn't figure out how. Yeah, the Punkorama had the Barroom Hero, and then the teaser, it was a little teaser I got at Warped Tour that had, and I had heard a lot of Dropkick Murphys, but I hadn't connected that there were different guys in different eras.
Yeah,
and I couldn't understand how Barroom Hero and Walk Away was the same band, and it totally was the same band because there was a vibe to it, but I couldn't figure out what was different. And this version, though, it's funny because sometimes what I don't like about Dropkick Murphys is they can be a little too Dropkick Murphys.
No, this is when they, dude.
This is when they
were. This is my preferred version of Dropkick. This is
why we all actually like them. We accept everything else because it sort of signals to this.
Well, yeah, like their last record is all this acoustic cover songs of this folky stuff, and that's cool and all. But bro, that's not Dropkick Murphys to me, man. They're not Flogging Molly. They're Dropkick Murphys. Like,
right?
Yeah, bro. I like Street Dogs better than I do later Dropkick Murphys music. Straight up and down. You good?
Yeah.
Okay. I like Street Dogs better than I do later Dropkick Murphys, and I'm not trying to be, crapping out Dropkick stuff. They're amazing. I mean, look at the shirt I'm wearing. I saw them fairly recently. But this is like East Coast Union, like pro-union working man's oi music, dude. This is what I think of when I think of skinhead music. I think of old Dropkick Murphys, The Business, The Bruisers. But I mean, those guys are in this band sometimes. Like Dropkick Murphys, bro, is like a staple band. They are probably the premier gateway oi band, because when you get into Dropkick, you start to find your way back into stuff like The Business of Cockney Rejects, Coxbar, stuff like stuff I don't even listen to, man. But that leads you to stuff like CMI and all these modern oi bands and stuff. So without this record, I think there'll be a lot of skinheads that don't exist, and I don't mean turds. I mean like sharps, skinheads against racial prejudice. Those dudes are awesome. They're very good people. They're just like me and you. They just dress a little different. I mean, that's about it, bro. But this album is good, man. Like, I mean, I would say this is like a no skip record, bro. It's a 10 out of 10, man.
And it's crazy that this was the debut too.
Man, dude, so
I always
ridiculous.
assumed it wasn't. Like, I'd always assumed that it wasn't because of how like polished up and stuff. Because kind of in the context of everything we've been talking about tonight, of how punk rock records tended to sound, you assume that this is when they've got it together. Not what's the 2001 album, which I think is
Blackout? No,
the one before Blackout. Blackout's my Dropkick Murphys album. The black one with the
Sing Loud, Sing Proud.
Yeah, which I think a lot of people sort of associate that as like sometimes year one of Dropkick.
Isn't that crazy? Because their 2 albums before that are better than that.
Yeah, and that's the one that always gets dropped down and low. That's the one to me that they started being that indulgent Dropkick Murphys. Like I like where they went on Blackout. So Blackout is just a lot of fun to me. But that
Blackout's
album is
good.
where they started doing, like, when I saw them, like I never watched streams of them. If they're ever doing a live stream, I almost never watch it because I actually don't like their set that much because they don't break out a lot of this stuff in it. Although
I'm with you on that.
like they'll still tour. Look at your shirt. They're still touring. Like they haven't turned their back on punk rock necessarily.
No, they
It's just
tour
what's
race.
made them famous is not these songs.
No, I would rather see Street Dogs play, because when I saw Street Dogs, they play some stuff off Do or Die.
Uh-huh.
So like that's, you know, I mean,
That's
they're no
cool.
longer a band either,
I
unfortunately.
didn't realize that they did that though.
Yeah, Mike wrote a lot of this stuff, and I mean, I don't know if that would be considered cover songs or whatever, but they definitely play a couple. They played oh man, what was the song that they played last time? I think they played Skinhead on the MBTA, but yeah, that's actually one of my favorite songs on the record. I like Tenant Enemy #1. Finnegan's Wake, of course, is one of those super gang vocally party songs. I like that one a lot. Man, Barroom Hero. There's so many songs on this record that are good. I could listen to this album every day and be just fine with that.
I think I've had like one too many beers 17 times because I've listened to Barroom Hero, and it just makes you want to finish your drink and grab another, even though should be listening to the moral of the song, you know?
Right. I mean, I'm not a drinker anymore and haven't been for quite some time, but like, yeah, I did a lot of beer drinking, a lot of whiskey drinking, the Dropkick Murphys. That is for sure.
Very natural. It's what feeds into, and a lot of the punk you and I talk about really isn't a lot of drinking music, but Dropkick Murphys absolutely is.
And so is Flogging Molly.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move it along, dude. Do you have any honorable mentions that you want to talk about just for a second? Because I do.
Yeah. So I know you have like a weird relationship with Strung Out, but this was the year Twisted by Design came out.
Yeah, I didn't put that on here because I thought you might, but I don't like that record. It's not that I don't like the band, but like we said earlier, man, they're real heavy at the top, which is like a 20% of their music, and then the rest of it I just couldn't care less about.
Mm-hmm. You had Mass Nerder by All. We talk about the Descendants a lot. People love that album. I'm just not into All enough to give like the expert opinion on it. I like All. It's just they are so hurt by who they, them basically being the Descendants without Milo just hurts them in a way that's almost unfair to the band.
Right.
Also, I do need to mention there's two more that I absolutely have to mention is 88 Fingers Louie, Back on the Streets, came out in 1998.
Not a bad record.
That is a really like super underrated. If you made the list of the great underrated records, I think that would be on there.
Yeah.
There was also Slowly Going the Way of the Buffalo by MXPX, which is not really my favorite record, but it's an MXPX
record. I
love
love that record. Mentioned. And I played it. I listened to it this weekend at my store, and I forgot how many dead good songs are on that record, dude.
It just why does it not get mentioned? Like, it's another one that just sort of got lost in the shuffle a little bit. I think the album in 2000 was so big that it just kind of ate it, maybe.
Which one was in 2000?
The one with Responsibility and all those songs on it. And then
see, I don't think of them as that band. I think of them as Life in General.
But again, so this comes in between those two though. And I think those are pretty, because the 2000 album was like before the 2003 album, I think was their biggest album.
Okay.
And then Life in General is such an iconic album. It like defines the band,
Yeah.
Had to mention that. And then one more that I'm just going to mention because I have to, but is one of my least favorite records by this band, which is one of my favorite bands. Bad Religion released No Substance in 1998, which in my opinion is their worst album.
Part of my issue is that a lot of the bands that were dropping stuff in 98 were good bands that had bad albums.
Yeah. Well, you think it kind of makes sense in that perspective. If 94 is kind of the peak, we're kind of on a little bit of the downturn now for a lot of those a lot of those kind of bands. And with Bad Religion, it's weird because I said I didn't really care for their major label run on my video, and a lot of people took issue with that, and they said they made really good stuff, and I was like, they did. It wasn't as good as the others. Like, it's clearly a step down. And this is the album I think most people are referring to, because all the other albums are still kind of classic Bad Religion canon. This one, and then they did New America after this, which Brett helped them a little bit on, and it sounds much better. People just dismissed it because we've sort of written off the Bad Religion major label era as that time. That's almost like they weren't a part. People say they weren't a part of punk in that time. And they kind of weren't. They were in a weird in-between zone where they weren't really like the legends like you would have now. But they weren't an up-and-coming band either. And they were like a bunch of 40-year-olds on a major label. So they just didn't fit the major label at all.
I agree with that. Yeah. Bad Religion, I like Bad Religion, but they're not as important to me as they are to everybody else. I
Right.
also have a whole ass another 5 bands I want to mention real quick.
Okay.
I had a top 10 basically. MXPX, we've already discussed that. Slowly going the way of the Buffalo. I had a hard time not putting these other ones on here. I'll go ahead and say the Murder City Devils, Empty Bottles, Broken Hearts, because I didn't realize that was this year, and I'm really bummed out because that record has changed my entire life. I'm not going to go into all the reasons why, but I love that band. If you like organ-led gothic punk rock stuff that's like super, I don't want to say whiny, but depressed sounding, dude. This band, I got to see them one time live, and I lost my shirts in the flood, bro. I might have to find some Murder City Devils merch somewhere, but that band is absolutely amazing. There's a band called The Gadgets that had an album called At Ease come out in 1998. Very important record to me. My dad introduced me to The Gadgets by accident. He bought me some stuff off of Hellcat for Christmas, and this is right before he died. Like I'm talking like 7 or 8 weeks before he passed. So The Gadgets at Ease, the Bouncing Souls with the black cover with the red and orange stripe on the top, and something else he bought me. But The Gadgets is like a mod rock ska band. That album is a classic, and they've never done much else other than they put out one other album that was like okay, but this album is perfect. Dillinger Ford did Midwestern Songs of the Americas. It's a classic, like rock and roll punk, like dad punk. I don't know what to call it. People call it dad punk because it's like what happens whenever we turn 35. We all find this kind of punk rock stuff. It's like Nothington, Menzingers. None of that shit would exist.
Southern punk, even though it's not really from the South. I always call it
a
Southern
it's just
vibe
like this
to
rock and roll. It's more like Florida punk if you're gonna do it like that. It's like it's what's that city in Florida that all that shit comes from? Doggone it, what is it? It's no idea stuff. Does the Gainesville? It's like the Gainesville sound.
I was hoping we could do this as a segue better. We should have clipped that out and put it in because it would have been really good to the next album we're officially going to talk about.
Just hold on, but the last one, that's true. The last one, I got a bone to pick with that band, by the way. But the last one that it almost took the place of the one we're fixing to talk about is Against All Authority, All Fall Down. That record is one of the top 10 ska punk records, period, bar none. The end. But yeah, those 5 records also deserved to be mentioned. That leads us to our top 2 records of 1998. I think we agree very, very much on these 2 and their placement. Yeah, dude, you lead the dance, and I'll talk about the next one, and for reasons you can see on my neck.
Okay, so what we're gonna do here is we're gonna display why ska punk is an extremely diverse genre of music because we have 2 ska punk records as our top 2, and they're 2 records that don't sound anything like each other. You almost wouldn't really recognize they were in the same genre.
The first one I don't consider a ska punk record. It is a punk rock record.
Okay, be that as it may, I'm gonna refer to, speaking of Florida, Gainesville. Hello, rock